Hi, everyone. Dr. James here. Welcome back to another edition of the Dr. James Show. Just to let you know, excited about our guest. It's someone who I've known for a number of years. Well, I thought I knew him, but in doing my research for the show, oh my gosh, there was so much more about his magic and his power that I did not know. And I'm looking forward to you guys meeting Danny Bader today. Danny is a best-selling author of 4 books. He's a corporate inspirational keynote speaker. Like I said, 2-time best-selling author. He's the host of the Back to Life podcast. And let me share this with you. Danny is a sought-after speaker whose life was transformed after he died when 8,000 volts of electricity ripped through him. Then he came back to life from a place where he connected with something bigger than us. He uses his experiences to lead people to create more perspective, more joy and love that replaces weariness with inspiration. He drives vision and creates momentum for people in areas of their lives. Some of his clients include Merck, Comcast, Ritz-Carlton, the Marriott, Lincoln Financial. Danny doesn't mess around. Danny Bader, my friend, welcome to the Dr. James Show.
Hey, Dr. James, good to be here with you. I appreciate that welcome, man. Always good to spend time with you.
Thank you. It's going to be a great conversation. Like I said, during my prior to my research, you and I thought we knew each other pretty well. But learning more about your life, your presentations, your travels, what makes you grow through life and not go through life, I'm excited to get started. Now, I started talking about your story a little bit. But before we move to the story, I want to share 3 minutes of Danny Bader with our group. Let's take a look at a video that basically summarizes you and your magic. Let's take a look.
So let's talk a little bit about living big. Because when I was 28 years of age, I was anything but living big. Because on July 28th, 1992, me and my friend, I was working for him and his brother, we were lowering a metal ladder that hit electric lines that we didn't think we were going to hit. And about 8,000 to 10,000 volts of electricity went into both of my hands and went out both of my feet. I had holes in them. And it killed me and it killed my friend Bruce, 36 with 3 kids. I came back. That's why the title of the book is Back from Heaven's Front Porch. So this whole notion of living big is something near and dear to passion of mine. And anything I do for the rest of my life will be connected to supporting all of us on that journey. And a vision is the ability for us to imagine something that needs to be real. And as I've talked with you over these past 30 minutes, hopefully you saw 2 gifts in what I presented to you. We all have the gift every moment, every day, to develop a vision for ourselves. Even when life sucks, here's the question. What's it going to be like when it doesn't? That's your vision. The characteristics of a strong vision are this. It's a prediction of your future. It's in the past tense. It's already done. I'll talk to you about that. Very clear and detailed. You think about something in detail, right? It creates that energy inside of you. Motivation usually comes outside. Inspiration is, it's inside. It's a good inside game. So think to yourself, what in your process of going the distance do you do to inspire yourself? Do you have the same energy Monday morning as you do Friday? First one's develop vision, create reality. Vision is the ability for us to imagine something that's not real. Look, the culture of your company is, and as it continues to grow, the collective space of all of your beliefs. So my hope for you is that our time today got you to a place where you're going to start to apply some things in your question marks that are going to generate a whole lot more happiness for you and a lot more fulfillment.
There you go. Because your brain is. How many have children? And they go, Mom, Dad, I cleaned my room, And you look in and go, oh, we have to define clean, but good job, working on it. How many of you do something that's not on your to-do list, you go write it just so you can mark it off? I already emailed John, but let me just write that and put a pen to it. I feel really good right now.
Danny, what's that like watching yourself in action?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, as you probably know, James. You just you get out and you're that outside observer. And for me, it's always, it always comes back. You and I have talked many times about, can I offer stories and information just to support everybody on this journey called life? So anytime I watch myself, I'm always kind of in that critique mode to say, are you touching them? Are you kind of stirring their soul a bit?
How often do you revisit that experience, the experience that led to the change in your life, led to your first book?
Yeah.
How often do you revisit that? Just think about it, feel about it.
Yeah, I think I probably revisit it every day. It's just such a part of who I am. It was just such an experience that has this lasting impact. There's just a strong residue that's always there. It's not as negative as it used to be, where it would kind of put me into a negative state. For many years it did, because I had a lot of guilt and a lot of regret about that day and about losing my friend, a lot of sadness. And now it's really about, if I can share that story, when I can share that story with people, it's not a morbid story. When I talk about death and coming back, for us to reflect on death and our mortality should really inspire us to go out and make sure that we're doing what we want to be doing,
Right.
And we're living our best life, and we're creating wonderful things for our business and our family and ourselves. And we're moving through, the proverbial tough times,
What do you remember last about the experience? The vault, 8,000, the vault went through your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then minutes later, you woke up. Is remembering the vaults the last thing? Remembering waking up? What do you remember?
I remember
the most?
all of it, really. I
Ooh.
remember the jolt. I remember yelling to my other friend who was coming down the ladder. He wasn't the one that was involved in the accident with me. He was the other brother. And then I remember my soul is the best way for me to explain it, Dr. James. I believe that we're conscious because our heart and our brain and our lungs work. Awareness, which is much more important for us, awareness happens when the divine drops in and kind of sprinkles on consciousness. And that's what happened. My energy, my life force, my human spirit, my soul, it left my body. There is no question. And it was joined with source. And I remember that. And I remember kind of that cosmic communication conversation that I had. And I asked, what about my mom? And what about Lisa, who was my girlfriend, my wife now of 29 years. And as soon as I expressed that love for them, I was right back in my body. So I remember everything.
I read, as well as saw, a statement that you oftentimes use, and it's simple, but it's powerful, and it's lead with love.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, I think it's not funny or interesting. I did a workshop yesterday with some leaders out in Arizona, and I talked with everybody, and I said, our growth, right? We all want to grow. Our growth really comes back to what are the basic principles that we practice. And I always ask the group, and one guy said love. And I said, all right, hold on to that. We'll come back to that. And towards the end of the session, when I closed out my story and what happened, I'm convinced that my spiritual energy, my divine energy came back into my body because I expressed love for two people that were still here. There's no question that's what brought me back. So yeah, lead with love. Love's the greatest energy out there. There's no judgment in love. There's acceptance. There's empathy. There's support. And love is just it. And, I know sometimes people say, well, it's tough to lead with love. And it is. And we need to keep focused on it so that we can continue to grow stronger in that.
The last time I heard a statement that was similar to that was when the pastor talked about feedback to your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to give it truth in love.
Mm-hmm.
So give your truth but give it in a loving way, where sometimes when couples are angry and frustrated, they share their truth, but it's not in love.
Right.
So when I heard about Lead with Love, I thought about that. Now, I stumbled upon another video clip, and it's you talking about the aftermath. And you got pretty deep. You talked about heaven a little bit. Let's take a look at this brief clip, and I'd love to get your feedback on this. Let's take a look.
Heaven. So most people believe in heaven. I know. There's no question. When your body stops, yeah, there's something else. Just before I was 29, a friend and I were lowering a ladder planning to miss the electric lines. And it was very, very close, and we hit them. And about 8,000 to 10,000 volts of electricity raced down the ladder and went into both of our bodies. And we both died. And then my soul left my body. And it went to the source of our energy, which I call God. And it was absolutely beautiful. I was gone for probably 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and I expressed concern for my mom and my girlfriend, my wife now, in this conversation, this cosmic conversation with God. And when I did, my body started again. It was obviously the craziest thing I ever experienced. And it's interesting, as I did more research on NDEs and people who had died, many had a similar story where they were concerned for other people. They came back in that instant. It was almost like somebody plugged your body back in. But as I look at that, if you think, we expressed love and we came back, and our greatest commandment is just to love one another. So if we can lead with love, right? That's one of the lines I use in my work and with my children. Lead with love, and everything else will be okay.
How did it change your life? How did that experience change your life, personally, professionally, or both?
Right. People would always ask me that, Dr. James, and I would say it didn't. And then it took some time for me to see how it did. It really changed it in two ways. I was raised Catholic. I still practice Catholic faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I always believed in heaven. I believed in this afterlife. Of course, when you're growing up, you think it's the place where you get free ice cream all the time, and the guy with the gray beard is sitting there as a little kid, And it's evolved to me now where my spiritual energy, my soul, goes back to its source. And that's what I experienced. There was further for me, my energy to go. And that's what I felt. And it's so hard to talk about that experience because I'm trying to put into English words, which is not really English wordable, so to speak.
Right.
So number one, it was that I believe that when our body stops, there's an energy that continues on. And now I know it. I absolutely know it. I don't want to die anytime soon. I love my life. I love my family and friends. And I know that something's after that. And it's my belief that the way we lead our lives here is going to dictate where that energy goes.
Right.
So for me, it's just, pay attention to the spiritual teachings that I believe all get back to love and goodness and forgiveness. The other way that it changed my life, and I really kind of just settled on this recently, the day of the accident, I had lived in Aspen, Colorado for a number of years before that. And the day of the accident, I love my girlfriend, Lisa, and we're married now 29 years. I was seriously contemplating going back to Aspen and getting my real estate license. And this is 1992. And had that accident not happened, I probably would have. So I look now and say I probably would not have been married to Lisa or have our three wonderful kids, Luke, Joey, and Lizzie. So the trajectory of that accident, that definitely changed things. And I'm quite happy with how it did. I love our three children. I love my wife. It's kind of one of those things where if it didn't happen, you wouldn't know.
Right.
I would have just gone up to Aspen. I probably would have been successful in the real estate market as that whole market started to boom. I likely would have met somebody else and married somebody else and had different children. So it's kind of weird when you think about that.
Go, Lisa.
Yeah. My brother said one time, Lisa probably killed me for this. And I loved Lisa. I just didn't know that I want to get married.
Right.
I got out of college and I lived in Aspen for a little bit. I lived in Colorado and I just kind of liked to, job, career, money, that wasn't a value for me then. It was more, exploring and experimenting things and fun. And, I think one of my brothers one time said it took 8,000 volts to get me to the altar. I'm like, you can never say that again, man. Never.
I love it. I love it. And that experience played a role in the first book that you wrote. And looking over your left shoulder, I see 4 books.
Right.
Why do you like to write? And what was it about that experience that made you say, I have to put my hands on the keyboard. I have to write my first book. Take us through that. Then after that, I see a question from my audience members. So.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. So the first book, and you heard in that one video clip you played, the first book I wrote in 2012. 2012. So it was 20 years after the accident, 92. And you can see on the left there, it's called Back to Life. It was originally published as Back from Heaven's Front Porch. I had a small publisher, and then a couple of years ago, I got the rights back because the other 3 were self-published. I got the rights back, so I made it more consistent with my brand of Back to Life, which is my podcast and my keynotes. And I added an extra chapter towards the end. The story of what I would tell, the story about the accident, and people would always be moved, inspired. It would strengthen their faith. It would strengthen their resilience in this life. And there was one time that I was flying back, I think from Chicago. I was working for another guy in his training company, and I was chatting with a girl on the plane. It was a 9 o'clock flight from Chicago, and I was probably 40, and she was younger, in her 20s, and we just had a great conversation.
Hold up, you're 40? Get out of here! I thought you were 22.
Oh man, yeah. I got 6-0 knocking on the door. It's crazy. Anyhow, I talked with this young girl, and I never saw her again. She's probably 25. She was starting her corporate career. Very nice. And we never talked afterwards. But when I told her the story and we were getting off the plane, Dr. James, she looked me in the eye with such conviction. And she said, "You need to write this book." And I was just like, okay. And I had started it a few times, but that was the way she looked at me, and the conviction that she had. I'm not so sure that she wasn't an angel, because I do believe they pop up from time to time.
Sure.
And I just thought, okay, I got to go write this. I got to get after it and write it. And then, I had some great help with some editors and some other people. My whole purpose now in life is really to live my values. I think that's what your purpose is. People say, I got to find my purpose. I say, no, just look at this list of human values, identify your 6 or 8, and live more into those. And I think you're going to be on purpose. Steve Jobs, what was his purpose? Use technology, make life easier for people.
Yeah.
It wasn't money. Money was just a byproduct. Mother Teresa, empathy, love, service, faith. She was on purpose because she just lived around her values. So one of my core values is to support people as best I can. Wow. So then you go, okay, how do you do that? Well, you and I, we have our podcast, we have our radio shows, we have our writings, we have our keynotes and our speaking and our training. So that's it. COVID really, the second year of COVID, there's no question I hit some depression because I couldn't live into that value enough. I couldn't get with people. And Lisa would go, she's a nurse, a wonderful nurse, and she would go to work and the kids were out of the house. I would go back to bed some mornings until like 10 o'clock, just laying there in victim mode, feeling sorry for myself.
Right.
And, that's not me. I'm like you. I want to get up, I get rolling, say some prayers, journal, hit the weights a little bit. So, I think I've got some more books in me as well.
You are the epitome of someone who lives what they give. And I've seen it ever since I've known you. And the last time I saw you, I think it was a couple months ago, we're at a conference. You give me a copy of your book. Like, who does that? Yeah. Who does that? It means an awful lot. I'm blessed to have you in my life. Go to the questions from my audience. It says, Danny, you are a very positive and optimistic person. How do you approach dealing with failure or give advice on dealing with failure? So how do you approach dealing with failure, and what type of advice do you offer for how to deal with failure.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you have to reframe failure, and failure is just an outcome, and it's an outcome that you didn't want. You know, nobody wakes up and says, "Hey, this morning I want to have some negative outcomes," which is really failure. So I think what's really important is when you have those key outcomes that you're looking to produce in your life, really pay attention to the preparation and the process and everything else. Did I do everything that I needed to do in my power to create this outcome? And if you did, you got to feel okay with it, you know, and just learn from it. If you didn't, yeah, then maybe you don't feel okay. And maybe that's the motivation and the energy to do some things different next time. It's also to play that out sometimes, Dr. James. And, you know, I had a coach, Gino Oriama, who coached me in high school. He coaches UConn basketball,
Really?
women's.
I
I
didn't
mean,
know
he's an
that.
icon. He was 11 for 11 in national championships until last year. So he's 11 for 12. And he said when his players are getting ready to go into the Final Four, sometimes they go, what if we lose? What if we lose? What if we lose? So they're thinking of that negative outcome. And he laughs, and he, he's a character. And he said, I just play it out with him. And I go, okay, yeah, if we lose a national championship, here's what's going to happen. Your family and your friends, your mom and dad, they're never going to talk to you again. You're done. The scholarship here at UConn, we're pulling that back. You got to go you're not going to be welcome here anymore. And he said, it just kind of reframes it. And he said, look, we are a really strong team with some strong players. Let's get back to preparation, and let's just see and trust that we're going to go out and win this, you know? And sometimes too, though, we define failure, you know, it happens a lot of times, and I wrote about it in some of my books. It comes up because I've seen some people that leave a relationship, whether they're married or whether it's just a long relationship, or they may leave a company that they've been for a long time, and they frame it as a failure. And oftentimes I think failure would be staying. Failure would be staying and not continuing to grow into the best version of you. And I've certainly taken my own medicine in that regard sometimes. So great question. Thank you.
Stealing that failure would be staying.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did y'all catch that? That's a powerful, powerful one. Danny, can you share with us the 4 titles again of your books, and where can people go to gobble them up and purchase?
Yeah, thanks. So thanks. So Back to Life it's based on the real life event of my accident, told through a young man named Jake. So it's fictionalized a bit. And it's in that book that I introduce a model called Jackrabbit of 5 principles that I teach: develop vision, be still, seek support, know thyself, and evolve. So I've been told, very good read for anybody that's kind of struggling with a transition in life. Abraham's Diner is a small business fable about a stressed out executive in Southern California. I Met Jesus for a Miller Lite is not overly religious. A lot of times people see Jesus and they go, oh my gosh, is it religious? And I'm like, it says Miller Lite too. You know, it's just a story. Yeah. You'd love that. And I didn't have a copy, but that's about a running back in the NFL, you know, because I know you played, you know, at the high level football. And he gets concussions, Michael, and nobody wants him anymore. And he was very type A. I'm going to play for 12 years. And now his life's a little bit out of control, and some of his friends are struggling with some health challenges and addiction and all. And then the last one, taking the SH*T out of the show, is 7 short stories to navigate life's challenges. So each chapter you drop into a different person that's struggling with something in life. You know, that proverbial show. I think we all know what that term is. My dear mom said I couldn't put the word on the cover, so I had to pull out the I and put an asterisk in there. That, again, is just a reminder of some basic principles that will help us deal with the brutal facts of struggle sometimes that we have to deal with. It's not discounting those facts. You know, that's that toxic positivity where everybody runs around like it's unicorns and rainbows. It's acknowledging the facts, seeing how you're going to move through, dropping to your knees with a strong faith, surrounding yourself with good people, and developing a vision to say, this is what it's going to look like when this crappy time is in the rearview mirror for me. And we will move through this.
I love it. Where can they go to pick them up?
Amazon. Yeah, check out Amazon. You can get some out there.
Oh, and where can they go to learn more about you? What's your website? Let us know where we can go learn more.
Thanks, Dr. James. Yeah, it's DannyBader.com. And then I've got a presence on Instagram and Facebook as well, and LinkedIn. I don't do anything with Twitter or TikTok or some of those other ones. If they go to the website, you can see all the social media things at the bottom, and then go, see which ones might make sense for them to connect and follow.
And there's some pretty cool videos on YouTube as well.
Thank you.
Danny, when we met, I believe it was the late 90s. You and I were both doing diversity training, coaching, design work for Simmons Associates.
Right.
And I'm gonna keep it 100.
Mhm.
You were the first white guy who I ever worked with to do diversity work.
Yeah.
What was that work like for you, being a white guy?
Mhm.
How did you get into it, and
Mhm.
lessons learned, or a lesson learned?
Yeah. A white straight guy too, right?
Right.
Right. So I got into it through our friend Bruce Scagel, God rest his soul.
God rest his soul,
I did a
yeah.
little bit of diversity work down at MBNA. And when I say I did diversity work, I think I just delivered the content. Diversity work is a little bit about content, and it's a lot more about the person's soul who's ever bringing it. And I think with PepsiCo, and when I met you, and I met Jim and some of the other great people there,
Peggy and Barry and Tony, and
Tony and Barry and Peggy, and a lot of the wonderful facilitators that we had, I really started to feel that notion of diversity. And I'm like, wow, man, I got to get a little bit more raw and a little bit more deep here. And I would always tell the story, I think, which landed great, which really opened my eyes to diversity, which was one of the two stories, really. I'll just share very quickly. My dear friend Tony lives in Aspen, and Tony's a gay man, very successful in business. And we grew up, our families kind of knew one another. When I first went to Aspen, I didn't have a place to stay, so I stayed with him. And he had just a little studio apartment. And I was like a nervous wreck, because here I am, a straight young guy, and he's gay. And here's this lack of understanding and knowledge. And he knew it. And he's a beautiful person, beautiful friend. And he looked at me and he said, Danny, you're a good looking guy, but relax. He said, and I'm looking at him like laughing, like, what? He said, when you go into a bar, do you try to pick up every woman in the bar?
Wow.
And I'm like, no. He says, neither do I. And I stayed with him, and I met many of his gay friends, and our oldest son, Luke, is gay. And man, was I blessed to have that experience, just to open my eyes a little bit more. I wasn't, I don't think I was homophobic. I didn't, it wasn't like I was mean, or I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
And I got that. And then the diversity thing one time, and I think it was for PepsiCo. Might have been with David Allen, though. I went to China, and it was the first time I was ever in China. And I remember I had some time. I was staying like a Sheraton, so an American hotel.
Yeah.
But I didn't know the language. I didn't know the food. And I walked down to get out of the hotel to this mall. And now here I am walking around Chinese people that are mostly 5 foot, 5'2".
Yeah.
And I'm 6'1", gray hair, white guy, and everybody's staring at me. And I was like, wow, this is what it feels like, because as a white guy in America, nobody stared at you. Yeah. So that, that with those years, I'm very blessed. I think that cultivated my soul, doing that work.
In doing the work, especially now, because I still do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have some white people who say, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help. What can I do? When George Floyd was murdered, a lot of my white friends called me saying the same thing. How can I help? What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you have given them, or what advice would you give them in terms of helping to create an inclusive, empowering workplace where we all, or workplace in the world where we all belong?
Yeah, I would say don't focus, for me, don't focus so much on the facts of what happened there. I mean, a man lost his life for sure, and pray for him and for his family. But everybody wanted to analyze the facts, right? He was doing drugs, he deserved it. He had a heart attack. It wasn't, now suddenly they're breaking down the whole crime, rather than listen to other people and how do they feel about that. You know what I mean? So don't go judge the act that happened on the street with those
Yeah.
police officers, because that for me is all the volatility, all the judgment, and they're missing the whole point then, right? They're missing the whole point. So for me, it was really, anytime these things happen, it's anything. And gosh, we've had so many things happen now with the Supreme Court and how they voted on different things.
Yeah.
And you and I, everybody holds different beliefs about them. And that's okay. But it's to understand that your beliefs don't dominate, nor should they. And for me, it's just to say, at some point, our energy, our soul, our spirit is going to continue on. And I don't know what's going to happen then. So right now, I'm going to just try to be the best version of Danny Bader. And it's really working to understand more. It's not adopting other people's beliefs in some cases. In some cases it is. And because that's part of growth. Other times it's saying, no, these are my beliefs, and for me, they're good ones. And I understand that you have different ones that are good for you.
Love
You
it.
know?
I love
Yeah.
it. I thought you primarily spoke to large corporations. I shared some of the organizations in the beginning in your bio,
Mhm.
but I found out that you did a TED Talk,
Mhm.
and the talk was for youth. Let's
Yes.
look at a snippet from your talk. I found it amazing. Folks, go check it out. Let's take a look at this clip of Danny Bader TED Talk with the youth.
After that accident, I got out of the hospital and I came back home to my parents' house, and I slid into a very, very dark place that a human being can go to. Very stressed out, very depressed, because of the accident and the blame that I placed on myself. So about 2.5 months after coming home, after the accident, in that state that I was in, I went to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and I wasn't quite sure I was going to come back from the Outer Banks of North Carolina. My mind was not right. And about 2 or 3 days after being there, I was walking back from a bar because I drank way too much then, because it was a tough time in life. So I turned to alcohol. That doesn't work. So I'm walking back to my motel room, and I go past a phone booth. Now, some of you remember what a phone booth is. Some of you wonderful young people are going, wait, is that like an app for what is it? Right? It's a little box where you would go in. So I walked into this phone booth, and I called my mother, and she said, when are you coming home? We can't wait to see you. She had no idea what I was thinking about doing to myself. And through tears and a big lump in my throat, I said, you know what, Mom? I'll be home in a couple days. I love you too. And I walked out of the phone booth into this seashell parking lot down in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And as I walked back to my room, listen to the question. I asked myself, I wonder what it's going to be like when I get better. And since that time, I have paid particular attention to what I pack on this road called life and this journey. So what I started to experiment with when I walked out of that phone booth is this. I developed a vision for myself. And I want you to start to think, do you practice developing vision?
Powerful, powerful, powerful. What do you pack now? Have you added additional items or feelings or symbols or good luck charms or beliefs? What do you pack? And the other question was, how did you come up with that title? I love it. And you're a phenomenal storyteller. Love your pausing as a speaker. Love your pausing. But what do you pack?
Thanks, Dr. James. I did that talk. Some friends of mine down in Delaware asked if I would do it for their school. So it was kids probably from 7th grade, 6th, 7th grade, and maybe a few into the high school. And I thought, most all kids have a backpack, right? As they roll around, kids have a backpack. So I thought, if I talk to them about that, what do they pack when they leave for school for the day? What are the essentials? What are the valuables? And then take that and say, okay, what should we be packing for life? And that's where I broke down the 5 principles of Jackrabbit. So
My next question. Yes.
Yeah. Pack a vision for yourself. Pack the ability for you to be still, begin to practice meditation and prayer and journaling and breath work and all walks in nature, all these things that renew the spirit. And then seek support and also be support. Oftentimes when I talk from a faith perspective, those of us that know the story of Jesus, as he's carrying his cross, Simon, the Roman soldiers pull out Simon and say, hey, carry the cross for this guy. So I encourage people to be a Simon, right? Are you helping others carry their crosses, throughout life? And then do you have a learner's mindset? Always be curious. We grow, Dr. James, as you know this, I believe we grow through, there's two momentums that push us into growth: tragedy, which we've all been through, tragedy and transition, and curiosity. And I'm often encouraging people just every day, wake up to be curious, look around, talk to people that have radically different views than you, and see where you can grow from that. So it's to develop vision, be still, seek support, evolve. And then the other one is to know thyself. And when you know yourself, one of the big things that I really focus on is your values and your mindset. So what is really important to you? And then what's that little voice between your ears saying to you? That's kind of knowing yourself. You can peel back that onion. When I work with leaders or coaches, there's a lot of different ways you can know yourself. Primarily when I just have a little bit of time, I say, okay, what are your values? And then let's monitor that voice or voices in your head. Most times we have a whole bunch of people up there.
The committee, right? The committee.
Yeah. Some helpful, some not.
Danny, I read where you said vulnerability is a strength. And I believe that from day one, but there are a lot of people who will say, I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to be vulnerable. No. Why do you say vulnerability is a strength?
Yeah. Well, I think what's really important for us in any role in life is human connection. Whether it's, I'm walking into Wawa for a cup of coffee and I pass somebody that I'll never see again, is there a human connection? In our relationships with our family and our friends, is there a human connection? And vulnerability strengthens that human connection because it gives people the ability to look and go, okay, he or she is not perfect. Their life is not perfect, which nobody's is. And it's just for us to say, wow, that's just another guy, another lady, another kid like me. And I think it brings together, that human spirit, which is so important for us. It's in all of us. When I tell the story, Dr. James, when I'm speaking with people, I say, listen, here's the deal. My heart and my brain and my lungs, my body stopped. My buddy who was doing CPR gave me up for dead. He said, this is not working. He's dead. And he left. And he ran back and he worked on his brother. And then I came back. The spirit, for some reason, came back. That's the energy that makes your body go. You need your heart, your brain, and your lungs. The fourth energy is spirit. And when that's called back, I believe then that's our time in this world is over. And everybody has it. I mean, why am I so special? Danny Bader has a spirit. And we all have it. You can call it whatever you want. Mr. Marriott, this retired chairman who founded Marriott, Bill Marriott, he was great during quarantine. He said during COVID, he said the human spirit cannot be quarantined.
Oh,
and I thought that was a brilliant quote, right? Ooh. They can close our hotels and stop airfare and everything else, and COVID cannot stop the human spirit.
Ooh. Yeah. I tell people I have had a tremendous number of pandemic blessings. Mm-hmm. Doing this Zoom podcast is one. Mm-hmm. Being a hybrid speaker is two, because prior to the pandemic, 99.9% of my solutions and offerings were done in person.
Right.
And when that was taken away, I had to figure it out. So I'm able to bring more to the table. With that said, when we met, you were, like me, a trainer, mm-hmm. a facilitator. And I was toying with the idea of being a speaker, but had not made the transition. What moved you to the speaking world? And I know you still train and coach, but what was the impetus for you to say, let me broaden my offerings and solutions by getting on that stage and taking advantage of my privilege of the platform?
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, right? Privilege of the platform. For me, it was kind of two things. It was, number one, as trainers, sometimes I know for me, it gets a little bit boring.
Yeah.
You go and you go, okay, I got a half a day, or I got a full day of the same thing and the same exercises. And I never just want to show up and kind of go through the motions. And there probably has been times that I have, and I trust that it was still valuable for the people. The speaking I like is different because you can bring more of yourself to it.
I see it in you. I do.
Yeah, you have a greater impact. So, you do a training and you may have 30 people in there, and, you get to talk for 400, 600, whatever it might be. And, so it's just the ability, because I think I'm living my reason. I struggled with, why did God send me back? That was kind of the question.
Yeah.
And many people offered thoughts for it. And then I just came back that, my reason for being here is to support people on this journey. Not that I have all the answers. It's just that you and me and people like us, we go out and we study and find information that these other people aren't doing, because that's not their role. They're pharmaceutical sales reps or they're doctors or whatever. They're not going out to find this information and perhaps package it in a creative way that may land emotionally, that would stimulate some action and some growth. And you and I and people, that's what we get jazzed by doing. So, for me, it's easy. It's just, I'm living that reason, so just write, speak, look to impact as many people as you can.
You talk about living that reason. The next video clip we're going to show talks about creating a happy and fulfilling life. We'll show a couple minutes of it. Again, must see TV, DB Danny Bader. Let's take a look.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So as I'm watching my timer now, we got 87 minutes. My goal in these 87 minutes is to get you to think about something a little bit differently and think about, how do you create a happy and fulfilling life? So I have an approach that I call Jackrabbit, and it's designed to help us focus. Focus is the concentration of attention or energy on something. 5 principles I'll walk you through today. All I want you to do is think about your approach, and if you go, well, I've never thought about it before, that's our whole intention. First one's develop vision, create reality. Vision is the ability for us to imagine something that's not real. The next principle is to be still. What do you do well? Get really good at it. So start to think about the conversation with your boss of how can you get more into it. It might not happen in a week or two, but this company will even be stronger as you grow when everybody's in their sweet spot. Look, the culture of your company is, and as it continues to grow, the collective space of all of your beliefs about business and people. That's it. You make it up. And yeah, support, you got it. Good. All right, the last one is to evolve, right? To evolve is to undergo continuous and gradual change. People will say, Danny, I get those principles. I see the, who sees the value in those 4? Be still, right? Seek support. Does that make sense to you? Whatever we call them. So people will say, in terms of evolve, how do I do it? And I say, just do the other 4. So my hope for you is that our time today got you to a place where you're going to start to apply some things in your question marks that are going to generate a whole lot more happiness for you and a lot more fulfillment. God bless. Thanks for having me out. Good job.
You got me all pumped up. Chest bump. Boom. High five.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. The speeches, the standing ovations. You are living what you give. You are pouring into people. What does that feel like?
Yeah, that feels great. When you realize that you've touched somebody and you've supported them. And, the standing ovations are great when we get those. It's more the messages that you get from people via social media. I just got a message from a woman that I've come to know a little bit. She's in Canada. And her son is probably approaching his teenage years now, has autism and some other challenges. And, he has the Jackrabbit shirt, and I sent some books up and all, and I talked to them before. So when you get that feedback, Dr. James, more so on the individual level, that just lets me sit and lets me be thankful that, the Spirit's working through me to support these folks. Yeah, most of that wonderful feeling comes when, a message pops up on Instagram from somebody I don't even know. And they say, hey, I watched your little video when you're sitting on the paddleboard in the Delaware Bay for a minute, and I needed to hear that. So then you just trust that we're doing what we should be doing.
I love it. I love it. My love language, words and touch.
Mm-hmm.
When I get emails or texts or social media with people saying, thank you,
Yes.
you really helped me, I keep that stuff.
Yeah.
If you were to walk into my office, one of the first things you see, other than all the sports pictures,
Yeah, right.
you would see thank you cards throughout the office. And anytime I need to pick me up, I just stand up and go over to one of those cards and read it.
That's it.
Read another one. They're on my desk. So it is a real fulfilling, soul fulfilling occupation that you and I spend our time in. To a question from the audience, it says, what are some practical ways a person can be resilient? Practical ways a person can be resilient. What I tell people is to use my MSBB, which stands for get mad, get sad, get better, get busy. Mad, sad, better, busy. And many of us get stuck in mad, sad, and we never get to better. And we certainly don't get to busy.
Yeah.
What are your steps or your thoughts? What can people do to become more resilient, especially right now where there's a lot of gloom and victim and I can't believe this and I want to live, but they won't let me live. All that victim vocabulary.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. For me, it's very powerful, and I lead people through the exercise. Write your story of the next 3 months or 6 months. Your life is your story, and you hold the pen. So even when you're in a difficult time, struggling, write what the next 3 months look like that are going to take you out of that. Put it somewhere where you can see it. Look at it often, because that will motivate you and inspire you, and then that will push you to action. And write it as if it's already finished. For me, and this is very practical for me, drop to your knees or sit on a couch or take a walk in the woods and just breathe and understand that there is something bigger here that's here to support you. And that life, you're going to have these challenges, you're going to have these struggles. I mean, that's the whole Stoic philosophy. Go watch some of the Stoic videos out on YouTube. There's a tactical, you will see people speaking that will inspire you to be more resilient and persistent. Because they know that there's struggles in life, and they know on the other side of struggle is growth and fulfillment. So without struggles, like I said, tragedy, struggles force us to grow.
That's so good.
So it's really a shift, of that mindset. And I get it though. They're asking for very practical.
Yeah.
I would go out to the dailystoic.com. Ryan Holiday is a guy that runs that. And you will get some information. I'll bet that will shift your perspective. And then for as you said, you call it busy, Dr. James, and I'll call it action. Yeah. Where would I go and what would I do right now if I was somebody that's committed to moving through this difficult time? Where would I go and what would I do? I would update my resume. I would call a friend. I would email somebody. I would whatever. What's the action? Where would I go and what would I do? A real tangible action.
I love it. I'm going to put a picture up right now. And I just want you to describe the person in that picture. Tell me, who do you see? Describe that person. And what do you think that person still has yet to do? Let's take a look at the picture.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was coming there, buddy.
Who is this person and what's next?
Yeah, that's just a man who is very appreciative for life, who has learned how to forgive others and forgive himself, and who trusts, doesn't hope. Hope is to want something to happen. Trust is to have a firm belief in the reliability.
Love that.
So I trust that there is something after this, and until that cosmic time comes, that's just a guy who's every day working to grow into the most loving version of himself and support other people as best he can.
I love it. And that person also knows thine self. Show a quick video clip of you talking about the significance of knowing oneself. Let's take a look.
Can I get to a place that most of my day is focused on what I do really well? We're still going to have areas that we need to get better at. I get that. No job's perfect. But your greatest opportunity, Marcus Buckingham talks about, is in the area of your greatest strength. What do you do well? Get really good at it. Start to think about the conversations with your boss of how can you get more into it. It might not happen in a week or two. But this company will even be stronger as you grow when everybody's in their sweet spot.
Getting into your sweet spot. When did you realize you had gotten into your sweet spot?
I think it was probably, it initially happened, Dr. James, when I was working down at MBNA. I think you might have been at Vanguard back in the day.
Yes.
And I was working in the business units, and I wanted to get over to their education department. And they said, all right, listen, you can come over and do a 2-3 hour little workshop on goal setting. And I did my first one. And I remember it was for the facilities department. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. And then it took some time to kind of evolve into those things. I think I really kind of sit with it, with the confidence that this is the work that I'm intended to do. Probably when I Met Jesus for Miller Lite came out, like the third book.
Yeah.
And then I started to get the podcast going, and you got into some episodes there. Then, as you and I talked about, you get that feedback and you go, man, okay, I love doing this work.
Yeah.
And there's value for others.
I love it. Our stories are similar. I felt as though I hit my sweet spot before the Vanguard. And I worked for Prudential, and I was in corporate training and human resources training and development. And people kept saying, I love this workshop. I love this workshop. And then when I went to Vanguard, it was confirmed. And the Vanguard audience was different. These were guys who were extremely bright, brilliant, hardworking, the nautical theme. And if they liked it, okay. Yeah. All right. They were the judge and the jury.
Right on.
I'm going to put you in the hot seat since you're already sitting down. The hot seat is an activity where you talk and not think. You give me one word. I'm going to give you a word. You give me the word that comes to mind. I'm give you a word, the word that comes to mind. No think, just bam. And if you start thinking, I'm saying, Danny, you're thinking. I want a knee-jerk reaction.
All right.
Are you ready for the hot seat?
I guess I am, James.
All right, here we go. Courage.
Love.
Commitment.
Family.
Authenticity.
Work at it.
Leadership.
Vital.
Resilience.
Life.
Diversity.
Needed.
Love.
It's all.
Purposefulness.
Create it.
Mindset.
Vital.
Productivity.
Process.
You are off the hot seat. Yes, yes. Bam, slam dunk.
Oh my gosh. I told you I'm coming off a red-eye flight last night, and I was like, oh, I'm so nervous. Dr. James is going to crush me.
If I had just gotten off a red-eye flight, trust me, I would not be up, number one. And I certainly would struggle doing an interview. You are doing a phenomenal job, and the plane is almost ready to land. I'm going to share a few quotes that I've stumbled upon that you are the creator. And I want you to speak a little bit about each one. You said awareness precedes change and growth. Is what happens from consciousness to awareness. Can you speak a little bit about awareness precedes change and growth? Is what happens when you go from consciousness to awareness.
Yeah. So for me, I think, people say you have to be more conscious, but then that other term of be keenly aware, raise your awareness, heighten your awareness. So I've been fooling with those, and there may be a book in there somewhere. So consciousness for me is heart, brain, lungs, physical body is working.
Yeah.
Awareness is when something bigger gets sprinkled in there. You know, God, mortality, those kinds of things. And awareness is where you need to get to, because heck, we're conscious every day, right? How many of us wake up and we're conscious, yet we're still not generating the growth and change that we want in our relationships, in our career, you know, physically, maybe spiritually. So I think there's a big distinction. I say there's a heck of a difference too between just living and being fully alive.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, fully alive is that awareness. It's that, hey, this is not going to last forever. I got my physical body, and I also got another dimension in there, another energy in there that's committed to something bigger. So I think the way I believe, I've come to understand it, is you grow and you serve, and more things are put into the world through you that are good when you're aware, versus just waking up and going through the motions.
I love it. Good
Yeah.
stuff. I wish time wasn't running out. You say the happiest people are those with the happiest relationships. Why?
Yeah, I think that's it. When I'm connected with my kids and my wife and my mom and dad and my brothers and sisters, and it's just, that's what the joy, you know, and I probably should have said joy instead of happiness, because happiness for me is kind of what people see when you're joyful. Joy is the internal feeling of pleasure, emotion, where you just feel really, really good. And for me, that comes predominantly, there's other times I feel good, you know, if I'm out on the paddleboard, or, you know, I'm going to the Breeders' Cup with my college buddies and drinking a beer. There's joy there as well. Most joy predominantly for me is with people. And if you look at all the social studies, that's it. You know, top 5 regrets of the dying. I wish I lived my life on my terms is one. Wish I didn't work so much. And one is I wish I stayed more in touch with my friends.
I love it. Dan, you say when you start your day, get a good rhythm going, get good momentum going to lead you throughout the day. What's the significance of getting that rhythm early?
Yeah, I think it's just doing those things that bring you focus, that bring you gratitude, that bring you joy, that create that. And I used to try to get up, 5:30, 5 o'clock, 5 a.m. club. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. I kind of pay attention to my body, like you and I, if we're traveling, make sure you're getting your rest. So you might need to sleep in till 9. I think what's really important, again, the way I've come to understand it, is those first 30 minutes of your day or so, that 1/48th, right? So we got 24 hours. If you take it a half hours, it's 1/48th of your day. Don't wake up, grab the phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just settle into the day. You're coming out of sleep, so now you're in consciousness. Sprinkle a little bit of stuff that's going to make you more aware. Prayer, journaling, gratitude, breath work, watching the sunrise, exercise. I know you and I try to. There's nothing better when I'm down the beach and it's 6 o'clock, James, and I carry my paddleboard 1 block to the Delaware Bay, and it's like slick calm, and I have no music or anything else, and perhaps a couple dolphins come over to say hi. Game over, bro.
Stop.
Game over.
Danny, you mentioned this earlier, but I love the way you put it here. You say, life is lived between the ears.
Yes.
I
think that's another book.
Trademark that.
I think that's another book. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Life is lived between the ears.
We're talking
really
mindset.
We're talking thought. You also say, hold useful thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, man, we need a book all of Danny's quotes.
Yeah. Well, there's in taking the SAT out of the show. I talk about useful thoughts there, and in the chapter, a couple of times I use it. It's you and I know, and everybody listening should know, you're going to have those negative thoughts. It's part of being a human being, right? There's a negativity bias where we're always looking for what's a threat to us. So what could go wrong? That's part of our survival. The key is, can you catch them and then flip them, as I said, to more useful thoughts? I mean, you love the story I used. Super Bowl 51, when the Patriots with Tom Brady are down 28-3 in the third quarter. And Brady's sitting, and I show the slide, Brady's sitting on the bench by himself with his head down, which could be taken as a sign of defeat, 28-3 in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And they said, what was going on there? What were you thinking? And he said, I was imagining what a great comeback would look like.
Ooh.
That's holding useful thoughts. It didn't change. You're down by 28-3. The facts don't change. It's how are you thinking about them? Because that's going to put you into an emotional state where you're going to take action. And from the victim mindset that I lived in for many years, the actions that you take are not positive. They're not useful. They're more self-destructive.
Well, I'm glad Brady wasn't thinking that way when they played the Eagles the next time.
You got that right.
Bam.
And we got a good year coming up, I think, my
Oh,
friend.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to our buddy Matt, and he's all in too, man.
Done. Danny, we're getting to the end of the show, and this should be easy for you. For a lot of people who come on when I get to this point, is deer in headlights, because I ask them to give a 15 to 30 second inspirational keynote based on the information you just shared or how you feel about life in general. And when I tell them that, I see like, oh my gosh, can I do a keynote? But this is what you do. So the bar is even higher.
Yeah.
So I want you to look into that camera, maybe bring the mic even closer. Give us 15 to 30 seconds of Danny Bader, uncut, raw, real. Some people might be just tuning in right now, and this is going to be the part of the show that's going to make them go back and watch it again. Mic check, mic check. The next voice you will hear will be that of Danny Bader sharing his mini keynote. Boom.
You know, one of my favorite quotes is by the Irish poet George Bernard Shaw, and he said, life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And I strongly encourage all of you to listen to that, sit with that quote, and realize regardless of where you are in life, you may be in a really good place. Go out and create better days for yourself and your family and your business. You may be in a place of struggle, and go out and create better days for yourself and your family and your business. Because after all, that's what you're here for.
Mic drop, bam, Danny Bader, dropping it like it's hot. Danny, thank you for an amazing hour that flew by. All the pearls and the gems, even the jackrabbits. Thank you for bringing your story, your life, your death, your books, your wisdom to the Dr. James Show. And for those of you who are watching, told you, we create informational and transformational experiences. Join us next week. Can't wait. And like I always say, you've just been Gym Facted. Take care.